Hi everybody, this is Shiro from Guided Soul-ution, and today I just wanted to do a quick follow-up video really, in regards to the blog and newsletter that I published recently titled The End of Karma. And I felt that it was profound enough to just kind of expand on it. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of thinking of doing the In Deep podcast to also interact with Mehreen to dive deeper into this topic. So I've been feeling about kind of asking a lot of questions about karma and during my meditation. And Jenny and I, we've been kind of going through this journey of a lot of past resurfacing, and we went through some intense transformational process with various modalities and rituals and things like that. And we reached a point where we felt something kind of lifted. And inadvertently, we kind of talked about how it feels like we don't really need to be working on something anymore. And so let me just kind of get into that a little bit too. You know, so my spiritual journey since the spiritual awakening, which is really just coming to the awareness, right? Awareness of the expansiveness of consciousness and the depth of what we call spirituality and all of that. And with that start, healing, shadow work, integration, that was really the start. And of course, as a practitioner and service provider for counsel and guide to others, the greatest service is to go within, to clear what we call karmic agendas or residuals or debris. And there came a point where the word healing really began to become obsolete in my vocabulary. So I kind of mentioned this before, but when we talk about healing, and believe me, it has its place and purpose. But when we romanticize healing and we use it a lot in the community, spiritual community, that we simultaneously hold ourselves to something to be fixed, that we're broken, that there's something malfunctioning. And so I shifted away from the focus of healing and quickly got into shadow work, really turning over various stones and aspects of myself that hasn't been exposed. So this is really important too. Shadow work isn't about like trying to get rid of things. It's things that are just perpetuating without awareness, right? And then really began to see that the ultimate, not the ultimate, but where we're headed is integration. And as we begin to really even come to a sense of massive awakening, massive consciousness ascension, where our consciousness is rising, regaining sovereignty, the density of carrying all these different fragmented, parallel, alternate versions of ourselves that are unresolved becomes integrated. And the less fragmented we are, the more focused our energy or consciousness becomes and rises into a higher dimensional conscious state. And in a higher conscious state, which I'm starting to see, because the rising into the fifth dimensional consciousness isn't just a switch. It's an oscillation, and it just eventually, right, we're jumping up and seeing above the clouds, and we have moments where we perceive divinity, we perceive the depth of wisdom and expansiveness of consciousness, and feel that love, and we begin to, oh, this is what unconditional love looks like, through detachment or whatever, and then we kind of come back down to below the clouds, which is back down to the three-dimensional. And as we begin, we go through this period where we're just kind of bouncing in the layer of the clouds, and then eventually the average of our oscillation becomes above the cloud. And what is happening and what I'm experiencing is the end of karma, which is the extension of the blog I wrote. And I realized, well, first of all, I was kind of asking that question, like, why do we have to have karma? And in the meditation, deep meditation, I start to have, and it usually happens in that state where I was interacting with the spirit. And I said, why do we have to have karma? And Spirit said, we do nothing of the sort. And from that statement, immediately a perception of a download came. That it is not, one thing that many of us don't know yet, is that karma is not a mandated process. It isn't something that God or universe is requiring of us. Like, hey, if you want to get to a better place in your life, to have that better relationship, or if you want to have that abundance, you better stay in this shitty one so that you can get through this karmic relationship. With that, we're like, oh, I gotta do my shadow work, kind of thing. And many of you may already know this, but I came to a clear recognition or realization that all it takes is for us to just say we're done. No more karma. Because even through spiritual counsel and with my interaction with the clients, that I see people in a karmic relationship. And the spiritual analysis of that is that, you've made a soul contract with that person to interact, to do something that is unresolved. And we look at it like a debt, right? Karmic is dense, we say. And, when, for example, if you see like someone who grew up with an abusive parent and they go on to manifest abusive relationship in their own life. And it's, the spiritual analysis of that is that, well, you chose to be incarnated through that environment, through that DNA, through that tendency to remanifest or to duplicate or recreate a scenario that you weren't done with in a previous life, and to give yourself another chance to experience it. And yet there's this innate perception that it's still some kind of a punishment, some kind of a debt, some kind of a thing. And before I was really shown that reincarnation at soul level is not about trying to right wrongs and fix things. It's literally like a game where the soul is going, hey, I didn't get through with that one. I'm going to try this again, right? They're not coming from, oh, I'm a victim and I'm wounded and I want to, heal myself. It's not like that. I know that when we see abuse, we give it such severity, and no doubt it hurts. No doubt that it's a trauma. No doubt it is. But everything can be healed. Everything can be integrated. And even healing in the beginning of integration, all it takes is acceptance. All it takes is acceptance, right? Even forgiveness is actually a very elementary level, if you think about it. We even talk about that too, forgiveness. But even when we talk about forgiving ourselves or anybody else, it's still contrast of judgment that something needs to be forgiven. But when we rise into a higher dimensional consciousness where we can truly have the power to say no more karma, that even is unnecessary because there's no judgment anymore. The need to judge something to be good or bad, right or wrong, something that needs to be forgiven, which is that there's a debt, all becomes obsolete because polarity disappears. The need to polarize yourself to good and bad, positive and negative, will also diminish. That is where we're going, and many of us are now in. And in that place, you'll notice that we will stop telling the story of karma. So back to that abusive relationship pattern that someone is repeating, right? It's a repetition or persistence or to insisting on repeating the process to try to get a different result. And when we call healing taking place or integration taking place, it's that we gave ourselves the experience to the extent that we're satisfied with it, and we just said, I'm done. Like when you put your finger in hot water and you go, ouch, I'm not doing that again. And it's that simple. So the idea, the closure and of the past and all these things, that it has its place like healing does, but to believe that that's a required formula, the suffering and struggle and the pain is a required formula to get somewhere, that is the one thing I can tell you is no longer true, if that was held to be true, or at least from my point of view. So always listen, and listen to your own heart and see how you feel about what you're hearing, what you're taking in. But really, if this adds value, then let it sink in for a second. When you find yourself struggling in a relationship, right? We already know that the solution, it has nothing to do with asking the partner to change. It's not even about working together. That's the thing. How does a massive collective consciousness awakening occur? Is it because there are missionaries working hard to spread the news? Well, the availability of information, sure, but the choice is still individually made and owned. And to the extent that the person owns their own choices, when it's genuine and authentic, and it has its potency of effect. So I want to give you a quick example of clearing of karma and how you can just be done. It's simple. It's not maybe always easy, but it's simple. We complicate things all the time, but let's find the most profound truth is in simplicity. It's simple as saying, I'm done. For example, one of my karmic journey through experiencing abuse and bullying and even racism and discriminations and insecurity was because I cared about what other people thought. I needed acceptance. I needed validation. I needed someone to understand me. And there came a point, because I'm all about simplicity, that I just said, you know what? It's as simple as making a decision not to care what other people think. It was that easy. So when I was experiencing, for example, racism is a profound, topic, and I, for one, experienced one for sure. And when I would experience it, I saw the world in a very different through the different filter. It was a cruel place. Judgment, right? Causing myself to be insecure is because there's judgment, a need to be a certain way, and for someone to cast judgment on me. And because I care, it all became part of me. And when I stopped caring about what other people think, the mechanism behind the scene is that I'm regaining sovereignty. I'm regaining self-worth. That's how much just deciding not to care what other people think can do. Self-love, self-respect begins to embody, permeate throughout your cellular system. So even though I still witness racism out there, it's not pleasant. I still observe it. I still observe how people treat me. And I can tell it's coming from that. I can discern that. There was a time where I was end of a performance and someone said, "You're pretty good for an Asian." And I just said, "Thank you." I took it as a compliment. Didn't even really think of anything. It sounded weird. And then my bandmate came to me and said, "Did you hear what that person just said? I can't believe it. It's so racist." And I thought, oh, okay. But this person was just innocently complimenting me. Perhaps maybe from a condescending place. I don't know. I don't care. Because that's that person's story. How it affected me is what matters to me, and it didn't affect me. Now, that person, my bandmate, thinking for my best, saying so to defend me, I guess, planted that thought in me, and I thought, okay, that may have been a racist comment. But again, it's up to me deciding and I no longer became, I deleted the karmic story of being a victim. And so it didn't register anymore. And since, except for that one little instance, ever since I made that decision, it no longer appeared in my reality. I can see it and observe it in the reality out there, but it doesn't enter my experience anymore. And even when that kind of thing happens to me, I can laugh with their joke, even poke fun at myself, and use it to bring more positive effect. And so I no longer remember the sensation of being insecure in that regard and feeling like a victim. And the thing about this is that most people, right, they're not aware of how much they're not willing to accept this simplicity. That's where it's at. That's why karma persists. Because part of the repetition of the story is that it comes with the belief that I can't do anything about it, or that it's placed on me and I have to go through it. It's different though than saying I'm done from resistance, like I want to just get away from this. I don't like this. That's resistance. That's not acceptance and completion. Completion of done is to just really say, really making a conscious decision to go, I don't need to do this anymore. But see, we don't truly accept that it can be done. It's like a lot of people, and this to me happens, it happened all my life. This is why I stepped into what I do. because I always had people just come to me unloading their wounded story. It's amazing how I just attract that. But what I also observe, now there is also great value in just hearing people out. For someone to be heard can do a lot for them. So to give value to their story is one. But what I notice is that majority of the people, when they share and unload their drama and complaints and their wounded story, is that they're not really wanting to do anything about it. And so the key to this simplicity is to really want it. Like anything else, it's an easy fix if you really want it. But here's the caveat here is that most people are not willing to just do that. They want to require so much more for that ending to come. Because most of us believe that we have to earn that ending, that it has to come with a lot more of struggle, right? There's an inherent belief that it has to be difficult. And to the extent that we enjoy the challenge, sure. Because remember, when the Spirit said, we do nothing of the sort, it was a profound understanding that the Spirit, nothing in the universe is saying, you need to work on this. The Spirit responds to our insistence to keep repeating and perpetuating this. And so they go, okay, let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. No, you're lying to yourself. You're not done. You still are holding on to this. And so now it's still going to reappear. It's an unconditional response to that. But we have some idea that, including our higher self, that there's some kind of mandated process to get through it. And that understanding, subconscious understanding, is underneath the way we interpret the meaning of karma. So today, if you're listening to this, it starts with the knowing that it's as simple as a choice and decision to just get off the boat. It's always on you. It's always up to you. You're in a relationship. You want to stay in it because you have history, because this is your second, third marriage, and because of your past divorce, you're like, I don't want to go through another divorce. Because you feel like you still feel love for this person, even though there's no harmony, no synergy, no exchange, no recognition of value to you, respect to you, but you choosing to stay, then at least realize that that's your choice. And even if you call it a karmic relationship, you can just continue on with your journey, not even thread of expectation for your partner to even care about what you're doing. And watch how, if the relationship is truly over, how that person begins to diminish from your life and will poof, disappear. And there'll be some kind of story attached that will help you make sense of it in this three-dimensional construct. But it will be plucked out of your life. Sometimes especially if one of your karmic journey is enslavement, your denouncing or proclamation of your freedom to say, you know what, hey, it doesn't seem like there's any exchange of value between us. And it doesn't seem or feel like you even appreciate where I'm going and what I have to share, what I love about my life. And I'm not feeling that way either for you. Maybe it's better for both of us to be on our separate path so that you can find something that you truly resonate with and enjoy the company and savor the relationship with, as I. It's that simple. But we always overcomplicate things. But as the collective shifts, you will begin to see that you don't have something you have to work on unless you are romanticizing from a masochistic energy to, I gotta work on this. It's shadow work. And you are wanting to perpetuate that story, then at least be aware of it. Ask yourself, do I really want to continue with this karmic journey? If you really don't want to do it anymore, then say you're done. Because even if you have a soul contract with whoever, that contract, unlike, well, I guess even in this world you can, but unlike this three-dimensional world, the soul contract is something that in our divine sovereignty can say, I null and void this contract with you. I no longer wish to continue this challenge. It's that easy. And with it, and this is how you'll know you're done. First, when you remember that past, it will become a data, a story that you remember like it's someone else's story. Because literally, I'm trying to recall a lot of the pain and suffering. I know I went through it, but I just can't seem to connect. Because you see, past doesn't truly exist. The past is only real to the extent that we feel it with the emotional reliving of that experience. If we're holding regret, for example, that regret is the thing that continues to germinate and fuel that version of reality to continue alongside of you. Right? This is why holding on to the past is dense, because it's occupying your present in the timelines. Even though you think you're just living one continuity of present moment, it's bleeding into each other. That's why you see repetition. That's because your past life story that's still unretrieved or fragmented, still fragmented, is bleeding into your current. That's why we duplicate that scenario again. And what you'll notice when you get integrated is that that version of you will feel very foreign to you, or you will begin to forget. And it was really interesting because I was experiencing these phenomena. And recently my friend introduced a book to me. And I do not read books, everyone. And I just opened it up after this recent meditation where I had this revelation or sense, and I was reading it, and I was starting to realize that the book was validating it, because the book talks about, and I highly recommend this book, by the way. It's called Waking Up in 5D, and I'll put the information in the description box below. But it talks about forgetfulness, that you won't remember that you did that. And as irresponsible as that may sound, it is because that story no longer is part of your narrative. So you won't feel it. You'll be indifferent toward it. You can recollect, but it will be as if you're telling someone else's story. So how we emotionally respond to the experience is what fuels that experience, right? Bullies love it when we go, stop it, and have that resistance, that victim response. It's the same thing with our own karmic story. And it's as easy as, I accept it, and I no longer need to give it judgment of whether it's good or bad anymore. Even when it's unpleasant, you go, okay, it's just part of my story. I accept it. And whatever needs to heal will heal. You don't have to focus on healing. It gets integrated. There's no doubt that a lot of our karmic journey with the suffering and struggles and challenges helps to deepen our love. Sure, it expands our consciousness, maybe expand and deepen our wisdom, develop characters that we want, sure. And to the extent that we even have that become intentional, it can lead to that, absolutely. But that's not the required method for it. You don't have to suffer in order for your love to grow. You can love and still deepen your love. Be still amazed at the infinite ceiling of how unconditional and expansive love can be. It is true that the source creator, why did God or source or whatever choose to create light and shade polarity? Why did the creator extend itself in countless tentacles in which to have individual experiences in which we all are the representation of that tentacle? Why? Because if the creator is the zero does not know that it's a zero until it creates a one. Love does not know that it's love oftentimes until they see something that is opposite or absence of love to love, to have something to love. Sometimes you may want to have something that's hard to love to explore what unconditional love looks like. But what I'm saying is, it's not a requirement. And if you want to find a different method, more fun way, exciting way, or less unpleasant way, there is a way, and karma is not the requirement. That is the most important thing here. Right? It's the same way we in our previous generations believed that working hard was the way to success. And so many of us been taught that way, and we felt that if we endured a suffering, there was redemption on the other side. But that was just a belief system. And when people started to say, work smarter, not harder, we began to realize that revenue came more easily, like YouTube and internet and entrepreneurship and things like that. Not that entrepreneurship is easy, but that we hold more power in our own hands. And now we're beginning to now realize money does not have to be earned. It can be gifted. We can produce it other ways just by having fun, to not work harder, but to work passionately, things like that. It is still energy and exchange of energy, sure. But it doesn't have to be earned, right? So as we change belief systems, we still can have various life experiences and have currency and money without needing to subject ourselves to karmic cycles. So today, my friends, really, really contemplate this. This is part of my sharing to you. If you have any questions, if you want to debate this or challenge this, please feel free. I would love to hear from you. As always, I really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, liking the videos. Those are helpful for these videos to find its algorithm to more exposure. But I'm here sharing this always from the heart. And thank you for listening.